The PGA Tour's new CEO has already held more than 30 meetings and over 40 partner calls, yet still says no final decisions have been made.
We have had more than 30 meetings across the Future Competition Committee, our working groups, player meetings, player advisory council discussions, and board sessions. We have had more than 40 conversations with PGA Tour corporate partners, many of whom are in the room today.
When asked about LIV golf players, the CEO responded bluntly, "That's not high on my priority list right now."
It's not sort of a priority I've put on my list. So that's not something I've sort of considered to date. There's other priorities other than that.
He claimed that scarcity doesn't mean fewer events, but also admitted that most current events will need to fit into a new competitive model.
Yeah, I think it comes back to what I talked about scarcity. I think there's a bit of a misconception that scarcity means a dramatic cut in the number of events of the PGA Tour as we know it. As I said in my remarks, scarcity is about making the events we have matter more. So I think there will be a place for most of our events in our new model. What you'll see in the model, it's more of a rationalization of the competition to make those events more meaningful.
The CEO openly acknowledged that major investors now include John Henry, Arthur Blank, and Steve Cohen. The so-called non-profit tour is now backed by some of the world's most powerful billionaires.
The investor group are smart and they're strategic, and they're not private equity people. They are long-term investors in sports businesses. John Henry has owned the Red Sox for decades. Arthur Blank, who I've known for 23 years, is not selling the Falcons anytime soon. Andy and Steve Cohen are going to be in the Mets for a very long time, and they're committed to it.
Tiger Woods is personally involved in the decision-making committee, yet the biggest changes reportedly won't arrive until 2028. Fans may have to wait another 2 years.
As Tiger has said recently, some elements could be addressed sooner for next season, with more significant change likely to be implemented for the 2028 season, pending the necessary work to be done with our partners and other operational considerations.
The PGA Tour's most radical restructuring in 30 years is already fracturing, and the players pushing back are the ones nobody expected to speak first. This is not about one player complaining about a schedule change. This is about a plan that would eliminate sponsor exemptions from elite events, lock Track 2 players out of their own national championships, cut the entire West Coast swing, and strip 14 meetings of player input down to a structure where the top 90 keep their card and everyone else fights through a relegation system. And the pushback from players, from Jack Nicklaus, from the pack itself is already happening behind closed doors, and it is now spilling into press conferences. Honestly, I think Rolap is about to discover that the players who stayed loyal through the Live War did not do it so they could be sorted into Track 1 and Track 2 like subjects in a class system. And the June 22nd board meeting is going to be the most consequential gathering in PGA Tour history since 2022. Is the two-track system the best thing that could happen to professional golf? Or is it a plan that sacrifices the players who built this tour to make the product more attractive to media buyers? Drop it in the comments right now. And if you want the inside breakdown of every critical flaw in this plan that the tour is not publicly addressing, subscribe, because June 22nd is coming fast.
Let's be precise about what is actually being proposed, because the mainstream coverage keeps treating this like an abstract business concept, and it is not abstract. It is specific, and it is coming. Brian Rolap revealed the two-track plan publicly on March 11, 2026, at the Players' Championship in Ponte Vedra Beach. Standing before reporters in a formal press conference, the PGA Tour's first-year CEO laid out 6 themes that were beginning to emerge from the Tiger Woods-chaired Future Competition Committee, which had already held 14 full meetings. The framework, as reported by Golf Channel sources and confirmed by the Associated Press, looks like this. Track 1. roughly 15 to 18 elite events, plus the 4 majors, the Players' Championship, and a postseason. Field sizes of 120 to 130 players with a 36-hole cut. Purses of $20 million per event, $25 million for the players, for the foreseeable future with a strong opportunity to increase. Season runs from mid to late January through late August, ending before football season starts. Sponsor exemptions for Track 1 events are planned to be eliminated entirely. Track 2, roughly 20 events, field sizes of 140 players, prize money between $8 million and $10 million, a relegation-style pathway where top performers can earn promotion to Track 1 at the end of each season. Promotion and relegation mechanics. The top 90 players retain Track 1 status at season's end. The remaining spots are filled by a combination of top Track 2 performers and the DP World Tour's Race to Dubai top 10 finishers. There are no mid-season promotions. There are no sponsor exemptions. According to Golf Channel sources, despite player pushback, the Tour is also looking to limit Track 1 players from dropping down to compete in Track 2 events. The Korn Ferry Tour shifts beneath Track 2 in this new hierarchy, with its top finishers feeding into the secondary circuit rather than directly into full PGA Tour status. Nothing is finalized. The June 22nd Policy Board meeting at the Travelers Championship is the next critical date. But here is what the Tour is not saying publicly. The Player Advisory Council has already been briefed in closed-door sessions. The reaction from those briefings, according to sources familiar with the discussions, has involved some pushback from players, a phrase that in PGA Tour political language means the pack is not happy and the Tour is managing the disclosure carefully. 2 specific issues are generating the most heat, and both of them are being talked about in press conferences right now by players with names and credentials and very specific grievances that the Tour has not answered.
Nick Taylor is the 2023 RBC Canadian Open champion, a 2-time PGA Tour winner, a player who has made the Canadian Open his event. This week at TPC Toronto at Osprey Valley in Caledon, Ontario, marks his 15th consecutive start at his national championship. 15 straight years. Not someone who courts controversy in press rooms. Measured, professional. A player who uses careful language because he understands that players who say too much publicly lose access to the conversations happening behind closed doors. On June 10, 2026, one day after the Rocket Classic cancellation was announced, a reporter at his pre-tournament press conference asked Taylor a specific question. Under the 2-track model, could a Canadian PGA Tour professional be locked out of playing in the RBC Canadian Open? Taylor didn't dodge it. He looked at the reporter and said this. "Yeah, that would certainly suck." Then he went further. "I talked to a lot of guys that are on the pack, a lot of people with the tour. I think the goal in mind is to have the best product possible. That's the scenario that I've asked and questioned. What happens in that scenario or in that case?" He kept going. "I know there's a lot of guys that maybe have their local events that might be a possibility as well. So I guess we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But I think it would probably obviously lose the Open name of it, because nobody can essentially earn their way into it or play into it. So it's unique for us, being a national Open. If you can't play in it, that's going to be a big bummer." And then he was direct about where he personally stands. "I wouldn't love that, certainly. But again, I don't think anything's finalized." Absorb the full picture Nick Taylor just painted at that press conference. The 2023 Canadian Open champion, a player who has played this tournament 15 years in a row, a player who grew up dreaming of winning it, who won it, who has become the face of Canadian golf, is sitting in a press room at the venue of his national championship, publicly stating that under the Tour's proposed new model, he might not be able to play in it. Imagine winning your national Open, your home event, the tournament your country watches, the one where the galleries are loudest, and the connection between player and crowd is unlike anything else on the schedule. You have played it 15 straight years. You won it. And now a structural plan, still being developed in boardrooms you are not in, could create a scenario where your world ranking and your tour status put you on Track 2, and the Canadian Open is a Track 1 event with no sponsor exemptions. You can't earn your way in, you can't buy your way in. You just don't play. Tell me how that feels. Taylor said it himself. If you can't play in it, that's going to be a big bummer. That is a diplomat's language for this would be unacceptable, and the tour needs to fix it before June 22nd. Here is the question nobody at PGA Tour headquarters has answered publicly. The Canadian Open is a national championship.
Its identity, its sponsor value, its broadcast appeal, and its open access format for Canadian amateurs are all built around the word open. If no Canadian player on Track 2 can earn their way into a Track 1 Canadian Open with no sponsor exemptions, at what point does it stop being a national open and become just another elite closed field event with Canadian branding? Should the PGA Tour carve out a specific exception for national opens under the two-track model, or is the whole concept of a national championship incompatible with a closed-track elite circuit? And if Canada goes, what happens to the Scottish Open, the Irish Open, and every other national championship in the Tour's ecosystem? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one.
Now let's talk about the second major fault line in this plan, the one that's generating pushback inside the pack that the Tour is actively trying to manage. Sponsor exemptions are being eliminated from Track 1 events entirely. This sounds like a minor administrative detail. It is not. It is one of the most consequential decisions in this entire plan, and nobody in the mainstream golf press is connecting it to everything else happening simultaneously. Here is what sponsor exemptions do right now. They give local talent access to elite events. They give developmental players a chance to play against the best in the world at a home venue. They give National Open organizers the ability to invite the best Canadian, Scottish, Irish, or Australian players regardless of their world ranking. They give charities and sponsors leverage in how events are marketed locally. They make a 144-player field at the Canadian Open a genuine national championship rather than a closed-access product. Under the new model, gone. No exemptions, 120 players, Track 1 status, or nothing. Now here's the part nobody is talking about. The PGA Tour spent 3 years during the LIV War arguing that its model was superior to LIV's because it was open, merit-based, and accessible. The Tour's most consistent talking point against LIV, the argument that carried the most moral weight with fans and with the players who stayed, was that LIV was an invite-only closed circuit for a select group of players, and the PGA Tour was a meritocracy where anyone who was good enough could earn their way in and compete. Under the two-track plan, Track 1 is now no sponsor exemptions, no mid-season promotions, limited access for Track 2 players to compete up, top 90 players protected, everyone else in a secondary circuit. That is not a meritocracy. That is a closed circuit for the top 90 players, with a pathway that only opens once a year at season's end. LIV was an invite-only circuit for 48 players. The PGA Tour is proposing a closed circuit for 90 players. The number is different, the architecture is closer than the Tour wants to admit. You stayed on the PGA Tour. You turned down LIV money. You did it because you believed in the open merit-based system, the idea that you could compete in every event you were good enough to play, that your card was your key to the whole building. You ground through the LIV War defending that system. And now the same organization you stayed loyal to is proposing a model where your card opens one door, not all of them, and the best events have a velvet rope you cross once a year based on where you finished in the standings. Does that feel like the organization you chose? According to Golf Channel sources who reported on the PAC briefings, player pushback has already been registered on exactly these points. The Tour is managing the response, but managing the response is not the same as fixing the problem, and on June 22nd, the policy board has to do more than manage. James Hahn, a two-time PGA Tour winner, who has been one of the most direct public voices on Tour policy changes going back years, said about the previous signature event restructuring, "We're not spending money to provide the best playing experience for our members. All we're concerned with is just pushing money to the top players on our tour. That's where we are getting a great divide." He said that about the 2024 changes. The two-track plan is the 2024 changes at 3 times the scale. Is eliminating sponsor exemptions from Track 1 events the right call to create a cleaner meritocracy? Or does it destroy the open access spirit that separates the PGA Tour from a closed league? And does the Tour understand the irony of building a closed circuit after spending 3 years arguing against one? Drop it below.
But before you dismiss this plan entirely, let's give the most surprising voice in its corner a proper hearing. Tiger Woods chairs the Future Competition Committee. He is the man who has sat through all 14 meetings. He is the man whose name is attached to the proposal more than anyone else's, including Rolap's. And Tiger Woods, who has every financial and competitive credential to make any argument he wants, has placed himself on record supporting this direction. Rolap himself has been consistent and specific about the rationale. Speaking to reporters before the memorial, he said, "At the end of the day, sports is about how good the athletes are and what the competitive consequences are. I think you'll see that in Track 2, and I think you'll see people fighting to stay on Track 1. He added earlier at the Players, "For our members, the message is simple. Play well and you earn the opportunity to compete in our biggest events and for more money." And Rolap's 6 public themes for March include one detail that the critics are not crediting:
The plan specifically calls for building in off weeks after major championships and the players, and attempting to avoid 3 consecutive event weeks. That is a direct response to the scheduling problem that produced the Scheffler and McIlroy non-overlap crisis. The Tour heard that criticism. It is in the plan. The English Premier League has produced the most commercially successful sports league on the planet using exactly the promotion-relegation model Roll-Up is describing. Manchester City fights to win it. Sunderland fights not to be relegated. Sheffield United comes back up. The drama exists at every level. Nobody argues the championship is invalid. Nobody argues that Brentford doesn't deserve to be in the top flight because they earned it. The system produces genuine stakes at every stratum of the competition. If the PGA Tour can build that, it is genuinely better for professional golf than the current model where the difference between events is arbitrary and invisible. But here is what even Tiger Woods' involvement and the Premier League analogy cannot answer. The Premier League does not have national championships. It does not have events that carry the word open in their title because of a 100-year promise that anyone good enough can compete. Sunderland doesn't get kicked out of the FA Cup because they're in the championship. The structural exemptions that make national opens are incompatible with a closed Track 1 circuit with no sponsor exemptions. Tiger Woods can chair all 14 meetings. The Canadian Open problem doesn't go away. Is the Tiger Woods-chaired Future Competition Committee building the best version of the PGA Tour, or is it building the most commercially optimal version, regardless of what gets sacrificed to get there? Does it change your answer that Tiger stayed loyal through LIV? Be honest, drop it below. Here is the specific moment that changes everything, and it is 11 days away. June 22nd, the PGA Tour Policy Board meeting at the Travelers Championship. Roll-Up said publicly at the Players in March, "We expect to make more meaningful progress by this summer, and following our June 22nd board meeting, I plan to host another press conference at the Travelers Championship." That is not a routine update. That is the CEO of the PGA Tour announcing that the next major public disclosure on the 2-track plan will happen at the Travelers Championship, which is itself a signature event, the final one of the 2026 season, and the event placed 1 week after the US Open. Consider the timeline. The Rocket Classic cancellation was announced June 9th. Nick Taylor's Certainly Suck press conference was June 10th. The US Open at Shinnecock Hills runs June 12th through June 15th. The June 22nd board meeting follows, then the Travelers Championship, then Roll-Up's press conference. In 14 days, the PGA Tour goes from the US Open, the sport's most prestigious test, straight into the most consequential boardroom decision in the Tour's post-LIV history. The players competing at the Travelers will literally be on the property when the policy board votes on the framework that determines their competitive future. That is not normal scheduling. That is pressure applied to a decision by placing it in the most visible possible venue. The last time the PGA Tour made a massive structural announcement that caught players off guard, it was June 6, 2023, the day Commissioner Jay Monahan announced a proposed merger with PIF, the Saudi sovereign wealth fund backing LIV. Players found out from reporters. The PAC was not rebriefed. The fallout lasts months, and Monahan cost Monahan the trust of his own locker room. Roll-Up knows that history. He was not there for it, but he knows it. The question is whether June 22nd produces a policy that players feel they shaped, or a policy that feels handed down from above.
Here is what this is actually about, and I want you to hold this thought, because it is bigger than the 2-track plan, bigger than the Canadian Open, bigger than sponsor exemptions or field sizes. The PGA Tour has spent 20 years trying to solve the same problem. How do you make professional golf feel like a coherent, dramatic, season-long competition, instead of a series of disconnected events that fans tune in for occasionally? Every solution has been built on the same premise: restrict access to create premium. The designated event model said, limit the field, elevate the purse, force the stars to compete. The stars didn't always compete. The signature event model said, limited field, $20 million purse, no cut. Force participation through financial incentive. The stars still didn't overlap. The 2-track model says, elite circuit, closed field, promotion and relegation. Force participation through the existential threat of relegation. Hold your card or fall to track 2. Every version of this plan ends with the tour trying to force player behavior through structural pressure, rather than building a product compelling enough that players want to participate. The Premier League doesn't have to force Manchester City to play. The NFL doesn't have to force Patrick Mahomes onto the field. The players show up because the stage is worth showing up for. The competitive consequence is real. The audience is there. Is the PGA Tour's product not compelling enough to attract voluntary participation from its best players without structural coercion? And if that's true, is the 2-track plan actually a solution to that problem, or just a more elaborate version of the same structural pressure that has already failed twice? Jack Nicklaus, the man who won 18 majors, the man whose tournament drew more than 20 million viewers in its peak years, the man who built Muirfield Village specifically to showcase the best competition in the world, sat down at the memorial last week and said this about Roll-Up schedule plans. I hate to see tournaments bunched too much together with too many big tournaments too close together. That's a problem, I think, and I think that's going to be a problem for the tour in the future. Jack Nicklaus said he wants to sit down and talk to Roll-Up directly. When the Golden Bear calls for a meeting with the CEO should take the meeting before June 22nd. Is the 2-track plan the bold restructuring professional golf needs, or is it a third attempt at the same failed premise of forcing participation through structure instead of earning it through product quality? And who is actually right here? Roll-Up, Nicklaus, or Nick Taylor? Drop your answer right now.
Here is what happens next, and it comes down to one room, one date, and one question that the policy board cannot avoid. June 22nd, Travelers Championship, Cromwell, Connecticut. Brian Rolop walks into a policy board meeting with a formal recommendation from the Future Competition Committee chaired by Tiger Woods. The board hears it. They vote on whether to move toward implementation. And then Rolop walks out to a press conference where he will face questions about the Canadian Open, about sponsor exemptions, about what happens to the Rocket Classic slot, about which events survive in Track 2 and which ones simply disappear. Nick Taylor will probably be in the field at the Travelers Championship that week. He will watch that press conference. He will have more questions. The players who stayed through the LIV War, who chose the tour's meritocracy argument over LIV's money, are watching a plan develop that looks increasingly like the thing they refused. A closed circuit, a protected top tier, a structural guarantee for the top 90, and a secondary pathway for everyone else. That is not what they signed up for. The final verdict is clear. The two-track plan might produce a better commercial product. It might satisfy media partners. It might generate more drama at the margins of the standings. But it will only work if the players at the top of Track 1 feel they are competing in something worthy of the stage they gave up LIV money to stay on, and the players at the bottom of Track 1 feel the cliff beneath them is fair. Right now, neither of those feelings is guaranteed, and June 22nd is 11 days away. If you want the full breakdown of what Rollup announces at the Travelers Championship press conference, and exactly which events are at risk of disappearing from the schedule as soon as 2027, subscribe, because the players haven't said everything yet, and this story is not over.